You right? How's it going?
Yeah, all right, mate. It's was it about 10:30 in the night here, so a little bit tired, a little bit off my game. So be gentle with me today.
Well, it's only the afternoon here, so I'm already on the Ribena though. So yeah. Mm.
Oh God, hitting it hard.
Anyway, I just thought it might be worthwhile just having a bit of I suppose just a bit of a chat about our experiences sort of graduating and coming into being archaeologists. I mean, obviously you've recently graduated this year, and it's been oh man, it's getting on to 7 years now since I graduated. That's just terrifying. But
Right.
but nonetheless, I mean, how have you found it so far, being a recent graduate and trying to make your way in the archaeological world?
Well, I think my situation's slightly different to some in Australia. I'll use what I know, in the respect that you're always encouraged to do postgraduate before you go out into the big world of archaeology, and that's obviously both academia and the industry. And basically, I haven't done my postgraduate yet because multiple reasons. One, because I discovered Archaeo-Chat and things have just been going from one strength to another.
So I'm holding you back then.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. No. Well, I mean, the thing is as well is that I need to find a university and a course that I want to do as a postgraduate. I want to find something worth studying in my mind, which the University of Glasgow has an appealing conflict archaeology course, which I may do in the near future if I get the opportunity. But anyway, back to the main point is that most Australian archaeologists, when they graduate with honours, they then try and apply to work in a cultural heritage management firm. I assume they call cultural heritage management firms a relatively similar thing in the UK.
Something like an archaeological unit. So, yeah, a commercial unit, I guess.
All right. Well, yes, we would try to apply to several commercial units, and basically the most luck people have been getting since about 2007, 2008 is on the big mining projects.
Yeah.
So in Western Australia, where we have the big Rio Tinto, the big mining companies, they need to get heritage studies done of the land that they want to inspect for mining, so lots of iron ore mining and stuff. And if they find obviously indigenous activity and things like that, that has to be recorded. Now, the good thing about that form of archaeology is that it pays extraordinarily well, and it's called something called FIFO work. Now, FIFO basically stands for fly in, fly out work. So you get dropped off in the middle of the desert sometimes, and you're asked to survey 40 square kilometres. Now, this is in 40-degree heat.
That's exactly what it's like in the UK. We just get flown out to a desert somewhere, and no, obviously not.
Yeah, no, it's quite shocking, some of the stories you hear, because of OH&S, UV rays and things like that. They ask you to wear long pants, and even what they call snake garters. Obviously, they're kind of like socks that you bring up to your knee, and snakes can't bite through them. Okay. So wearing all this gear in 40-degree heat is really something that I can't see myself doing, even if the money is really good. But just because you've graduated out of university doesn't mean you'll go straight into a good mining job. That's highly unlikely, because the jobs advertise for people with a minimum of 3 to 4 years experience in the heritage industry. Very high standards.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's exactly what we get over here. That element of how do you get experience? And I mean, for my part, as I say, graduated way back in 2007 now, is that element of I was actually going to go and do postgrad as well. Both the university and the funding body, two different institutions, assumed that the other one would give me funding. So I ended up completely losing out, and then I was tied to I'd had to sign up for renting a house a year in advance, as it were, so for the following year. So I was tied to this house, had to go and get a job in a call centre in Durham, and how do you solve that problem of getting experience, especially when, for the most part, I don't know if it's the same there, but you have to essentially pay to go and do that kind of work?
I mean, that's it. And I mean, I think one of the first videos that I made for Archaeo-Chat was on this topic about you're basically paying for the privilege of going out on the dig. Now, there's two different versions of that, and one of them is indirectly, where basically you're driving out all your costs, which include petrol, food, accommodation. What else would there be? Sometimes you have to bring your own tools. That's a little rarer, but the thing is that
maybe books to complement anything you find, research or whatever. Yeah, exactly.
And the thing is that there's now a trend, which is a good thing, I think, of companies reimbursing you maybe $100 Australian a day to cover all your costs, but it's not an actual wage. So technically you're not losing out, but you're not getting any money in return, which I think is a fairly good way of doing things. But on the other hand, you have, I suppose, archaeological field schools where, if they're run properly and things, you're paying $2,000 in some cases to go to a school in the middle of Belize to study Mayan ruins and stuff, and you get graded and credited for that kind of work. It's very big in the United States, but in Australia it's very, very rare, almost unheard of. And as far as I understand it, it's something similar in the UK, isn't it, Mr. Sue?
Well, yeah. I mean, you can do that kind of thing. You can certainly pay to get, to go and do digging experience on different sites and so on and so forth. But I suppose, I mean, apart from the possibility of doing it, I think the problem for many new graduates is being able to do it. If so, I mean, in my case, I was living away from home. Obviously, I wasn't living in North Wales, and you have to try and pay your rent, and you're being paid minimum wage, and it's really hard actually to break out of that. Now, obviously, since moving to Newcastle, I did lots of volunteering. I volunteered with the HER, the Historic Environments Record, and some other units, and I got some work like that. But it's not easy, and it's kind of strange how there is that expectation. Now, I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's the assumption that if you're really, really passionate about archaeology, you will just find a way to do it. And I'm happy to say, I mean, I certainly have found a way to do it, and so are you. But it's not straightforward. And I don't know. I mean, how are your friends finding it? I mean, I know lots of my friends are just about getting into the situation where they can start to get jobs, and we're talking 7 years on. It's really interesting.
Yeah. No. Well, I mean, most of my friends graduated a little bit before me. So.
Were you held back? Were you?
Something like that. I was a naughty boy. But no, anyway, basically, some of them have gone out and they've been quite adaptable to go and get some jobs. My close friend, whom we used to actually be housemates as well for a while, she's moved up to New South Wales to do a master's course in osteoarchaeology. Because primarily she's one of the cleverest people that I know, brilliant archaeologist, and she would be a credit to any firm. But the issue is her lack of experience and lack of opportunities in my state. Now, the difference between Australia and the UK in this way, I think, is because even though we do have a national system, the Borough Charter, which is a code of ethics in a way that deal with heritage sites, State legislation here is the legislation that directly affects archaeology and heritage. So even though we do have some local protections, it's mostly focused on the state level to have these protections. And what is the main issue there is that it kind of bottlenecks the situation because the laws are different in different states. For example, Victoria's laws are quite stringent in both historical and Indigenous archaeology, which are two different departments as well. However, in Tasmania, they're thinking of adopting laws similar to us, but haven't got there yet. New South Wales is different again. Queensland and Western Australia, South Australia, and the Northern Territory all have their own set of laws or lack thereof.
So in some ways, do you find that you can't even guarantee a direct transferability of skills, as it were, from state to state or site to site? I mean, I'm not necessarily skills, but but the ability to prove that you've got certain skills that will meet the different states' requirements.
Well, my issue, because I haven't worked interstate, so I can't say it with authority. But my understanding is it's the bureaucracy. So if you're writing a what we call a CHMP in Victoria, a Cultural Heritage Management Plan, which is partly an archaeological report as well as partly what's the best way to put it? Partly we're giving advice. It's an advisory paper to developers to basically say what you can do, what you can't do, preferably things like that. And the issue is that every state's different in that respect. So I might write a cultural heritage management plan in Victoria, but in Western Australia, they might not only call it something different, but they also might say you have to include an environmental component to your plan. So, I mean, that's an example of how things are so different in the different states.
So really, what I suppose what you're touching on there is that there's an even bigger fundamental difference in terms of the how archaeology is practiced between the UK and Australia, and that is that you, as it stands now, can go out because there's an understanding that you've reached a certain level, having got your ONS. You can go out and you can practice, you can write reports, you can submit these reports to local bodies or whatever. Whereas in the UK, that's not the case. The assumption is, okay, great, you've got a degree, a degree, well done. But what's your experience? And then you've got to go on to prove that experience. And this is the reason why I completely agree with the fact that units won't hire you unless you've got digging experience. Otherwise, they're just hiring someone who's going to muck up a site. But in some ways, I can't help but think it'd be lovely to have. And maybe actually the introduction of the charter for the Institute of Field Archaeologists over here will change that. It will mean that actually we get, if you decide to become a member of the institute, and they have to make sure that you've got certain standards of education, digging experience, qualifications, whatever. It'll give you some sort of way of having a card or something that you can just say, okay, yes, I have got experience, and then you can go on to sites.
Yeah, that's something that people have suggested over here, as well as that you have basically some sort of a field journal which you tick off your skills once you've done them, or a qualified archaeologist and mentor will do that for you. Which is, I think, is a brilliant idea. However, the logistics to it might be a bit more difficult to sort out, but.
Also, not to mention the I know many diggers who have amazing experience but can't necessarily formally show it. They can't evidence it. They've just got decades of experience.
That's true, and I understand that that might be the case. But one of the main issues I find in this is that it's with us. It's not digging experience that's lacking, or even evidence to show that it's lacking. It's report writing. If you haven't written reports but have spent maybe even 12 months to 24 months out on site, you might be looked on to be a good field operator, but you won't really be given any actual academic side to the archaeology. So you may be recording your site plan, and little things like that. But when it actually comes to report writing, you cannot do that, which is the big thing in Australia. Is that if you've written reports before, odds are you'll be able to find a job a lot easier than someone who hasn't.
Yeah.
But I mean, it just flows into this whole thing that there is a huge bottleneck, and a lot of people our age coming out of university are getting, in some ways, quite depressed and are moving on to other careers. So, I mean, do you find that's the case in the United Kingdom as well?
Well, definitely, yeah. I mean, most of the people that I was in uni with, like on my archaeology course, they haven't gone on to do archaeology. Because it is hard to break into a career, and on the one hand you could argue that actually means that the people who make it into archaeology and who are enthusiastic about archaeology are the best ones to be doing it. You could make that argument, but there are an awful lot of people who I would say they were talented, but they ended up having to just go and do a PGCE, that is, teacher training or something like that, and now they're teaching primary school or something. And also, frankly, I mean, obviously, I don't know if you've heard, but like the Institute of Field Archaeologists here did a report that touched on the fact that many archaeologists find themselves actually rather depressed or even turning to drink. And that's a real shame. And I can't help but wonder whether there's maybe there's a bottleneck in terms of the number of people who are wanting to get a career in archaeology. Perhaps that's a bitter pill that should be swallowed, and the fact that not everyone is going to be able to get a job, and an awful lot of people will find themselves having just to be, nomadic diggers, I guess.
Yeah, more of a hobby digger rather than somebody who might actually, I suppose, discover and record a site themselves. I mean, that's really the aim of every student that comes out of university, is to get to become a director of one site. There's people that have been doing that kind of thing for years. But that's a very small goal, but it's a very hard one to attain, I think, which is really interesting. But I also think that what you've done, Mr. Soup, is a brilliant turn of events. But the reason why I suppose I made contact with you in the first place and hoisted my dream into, I suppose, your basket is because public archaeology is something that's undervalued even in the archaeological community, if not slightly under-researched. And what we're finding now is that there are so many opportunities coming off the back of grand old shows like Time Team, where it's not just about making money here, but an interesting fact is that Time Team was putting more money into archaeology every year than English Heritage was, the national government department.
Wow.
So what you've got to think there is that if those kind of opportunities exist, then companies like Archaeo-Soup that are going out with passion to teach heritage to local school kids, for starters, to go on the internet and share our enthusiasm with our colleagues and the everyday man down the street who may not understand academic vernacular. I just think it's a worthy pursuit mixed into something that really hasn't been done before in archaeology.
Yeah. Okay. So in some ways you think that just because the old models are starting to bottleneck a little bit, there are opportunities for archaeologists to get out there and be passionate about their subject and share it with the world. That's a way of doing archaeology for them, kind of thing.
Adversity creates opportunity, I think, and opportunity is what both of us are constantly try to do. I mean, our conversations go on for hours sometimes talking about different opportunities. So when I see our programs running so well, our workshops getting national recognition, it does make me feel a bit more confident in myself as a recent graduate of archaeology that I can make a difference in a subject on a world scale. Yeah.
Well, on that massive imagine. Well, yeah, it's just like on that massive point. I suppose we'll have to bring this conversation to a close. But so I suppose all in all, there are opportunities out there for new graduates. It's just a case of keeping the faith, as it were, keep working hard.
It is a keep working hard situation, but also put more credit into yourself and put more stock into yourself, because you never know, creating your own business or working with other friends and people out of university will create opportunities for yourself. And that's how I suppose winning is done. That's how you make something of
win. Yeah, exactly. Well, no. I suppose more. I suppose, to put it another way, I mean, I suppose archaeologists need to accept that actually they're very skilled in many different areas, and this can be applied to finding new ways of doing what they love and what they want to do, I guess. Yeah. Okay.
Well, yeah, it's such a vague profession that you could either say they're skilled in many areas, or a jack of all trades and master of none of the science community. And I'm sure you'd find a lot of physicists and biologists saying that about archaeologists. So
yeah. Okay, cool.
Interesting. It is an interesting and wonderful career to be in.
Cool. Yeah. Well, definitely. All right then. Well, in that case, we'll leave it there then. Cheers. It's been an interesting conversation. I'll catch you there.
Cheerio.
Bye.